Okay, I guess I'm ready. Howdy. Today's gonna be pretty straightforward. Um, I think, yeah, all I'm really doing today is I am going to be working on some non-metallic metal stuff. Um, let's see. I've got some other things that I could work on, but not really feeling it. So today's gonna be a pretty simple day. It's gonna be this guy. I started him a while ago, but the farthest I got was like that initial layer of that orangey yellow. And I don't think that's the route I want to go. So I'm probably going to paint back over that and try again. I found from Maverick Paints, actually, a form of non-metallic metal gold that he does that I thought was a lot simpler and still ended up looking really good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and use his system today, and we'll see how that works out. I definitely need to find a new place to put this mic because right now it's blocking off half my monitor. But I'll figure something out. Oh, I never changed the to-do list. I could have sworn I did that. Give me one moment, please. Non-metallic metal custodies. That'll work. But yeah, non-metallic metal hard. We're gonna go ahead and give this the best shot we got because it's something I still don't feel super confident in doing, but I'm definitely in a better place than I was a few months ago, back when I was really first trying to learn this stuff. And I think in this case I'm gonna go with three main colors: a dark brown, or four main colors: a dark brown, a light brown, a gold, and then a warm white that will turn the gold into more of an ice white, which is a color I've been considering buying for quite a while because I've seen a lot of people use ice yellow, and it seems to be a pretty effective color for getting a highlight on a yellow anything, on a yellow panel or something. So I might do that. I suppose we'll see, but first I'm going to go ahead and hit that entire, whatever this is, the Vexillia? I'm not sure what to call it. I'm going to hit it again with a dark brown to go ahead and try and reset it back down to a darker base color, which will allow me to build it back up from the same start, or a similar start, as opposed to trying to go from this orangey yellow, which I'm not doing on the rest of the mini. And hopefully also having a slightly better brush will help with that too, because I'm going to be working with a Winsor & Newton, not a beaten up Citadel brush. But yeah, let's go ahead, paint all this stuff back down, because while it was not looking bad as kind of a rough-in, it's just not the color palette that I'm going to be going with. So this gold is probably going to end up being a lot colder than the previous gold I was attempting. So we will see, I suppose. But let's go ahead and get this guy painted back down. I think that even though this is not the same brown as the rest of him, which was an overspray done a long time ago, I honestly don't even remember the concoction I made, this should still work fine. This should still be pretty permissive. I suppose we will see. And like I said, I'm just trying to get this quickly covered to neutral out as much of the yellow-orange as possible before we start over again. And I think those chains, I might actually go ahead and make them silver just to give them a bit more of a pop. Okay. So as always, it's about, what time is it actually? It's about 2:30-ish, and that means that about in about an hour and a half, I'm gonna go ahead and finish streaming so I can feed my pets and take them out and then get some exercise done. Because I am still attempting to make healthier decisions this month with regards to my overall body health. And part of that is needing to do a lot more physical activity. So hopefully, if you're watching along, this is going to be relatively informative. I've done a lot of non-metallic metal on this channel before, but it's been a while, so I'm going to probably give you guys a rundown of exactly how I plan to do this as I get started beyond the initial painting of it back down to this darker brown. Hopefully the camera is still doing what it's supposed to do. I think what I might have to do is rejigger my painting booth because it's definitely getting in the way. So we've got this all painted down. It definitely looks to be dulled down compared to where it was. I'm actually going to hit this with a hair dryer so that the paint will dry a little quicker, which will allow me to move on to kind of my next step in this process, which I think is going to have to be that yellow. So if you just forgive me for a second, I'll be right back. Okay, that looks to have done it. It's nice and dry now. There's a little bit of the bronze peeking through, or of the orangey red, but that's gonna be fine. Orangey yellow, I guess. I think now's the time for me to switch over to my Winsor and Newton. Let's hope this can get us some better traction here. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go straight into the yellow that I have set up. We'll see how that looks. And if it doesn't look any good, then I can always paint back over it. Thankfully, since this is just kind of a banner, and I'm putting very thin layers on it, it's not going to take much to try and make this thing look decent. And even if I don't, I can continue going back over it and attempting to like fix anything that I don't like about it. But this is going to be a fairly slow and gradual process for me because I'm not particularly confident in my ability to do this specific color pattern correctly, the specific non-metallic metal. Now, one thing I gotta remember is that with non-metallic metal, you've got to kind of envision where the light source will be hitting it strongest. And in the case of this Mini, it's got a lot of nice little curves and ridges that I can almost dry brush with to kind of replicate where the light would probably hit it best, because that's about where my brush is going to hit it. So that is what's going to happen. I'm just going to stroke downwards with my brush in the same direction as any potential light would have hit the darn thing. And that will allow us to kind of replicate the look of light hitting the eagle heads. And you can see that does a pretty decent job already. It's obviously not ideal or perfect, but just with a little bit of quick downward stroking, it does a pretty good job of hitting only the spots that are raised. I'm not sure how well that's coming through on the camera. Hopefully it's not too washed out. But yeah, we're going to kind of do the same thing on the wings. And the only reason why I'm not doing this with a with the other brush that I was using is that that one retains way too much water and too much moisture, and so it would just be flooding the low spots on here with a whole ton of of extra paint. And you can even see a little bit where I got a little sloppy, and that's going to be okay. This is not meant to be a perfect... Whoop, hello there. One moment, please. One of my lights just went out. Not that you guys can't really tell, actually, which is nice, but for me, that's annoying. Let's see why. Unfortunately, that transformer is not well plugged into my outlet, but that's okay. So we're going to go ahead. Again, kind of focus on the high spots where the light would most likely hit the wings, the most prominent spots. And anything that doesn't look too great we'll clean up later. Right now, it's kind of just about hitting the high spots. And I'll admit, one of the worst things about trying to do non-metallic metal anything, especially when you're trying to work with gold, is that yellow is not the greatest color in the world for painting on a dark surface. So it ends up being splotchy, it ends up being kind of see-through. It just ends up giving a really ugly finish until you do a couple layers with it, and until you get more layers on top of it. Okay. Go ahead and hit this side and see if we can replicate our success there. Just going to stroke down a little bit, almost as though I'm dry brushing. Try and hit all the spots. That will allow us to continue building up that color. Yep, there we go. And all I'm really doing is taking the flat of the brush against kind of the ridges of the wings and dragging it across almost like a dry brushing motion. And hopefully that inconsistency will also emulate the play of light across the surface, which is not always going to be absolutely clear or perfect. Now, I've had this talk a few times. I was really rough with my previous number 1 Winsor & Newton, and so I was a little worried about taking out another one and trying to work with it, but I got some brush care tips to hopefully help this last a little longer, and so I'm trying to enact those. One thing that I'm definitely doing is that even though I'm still not the best about cleaning out my paint water, I have 2 different cups, and one is very specifically to like get most of the bulk mess off of a brush, and the second one is to rinse off any of the leftover junk that was in the first paint cup. And so hopefully by the time the Winsor & Newton brush goes to the second wash, it's much cleaner coming back out. Okay, so the front is done. Let's try and emulate that again with the back. Kind of the same thing. Unfortunately, I'm a little too far away from everything to really get in there and get my eyes close up to the action, so I'm doing this at a bit of a distance, but it should be okay. Okay, and actually let's go ahead and get the top too, because the top definitely is going to need a little bit of attention, or else it's going to be oddly dull compared to the rest of the Mini and the rest of the non-metallic. Okay. Uh-oh. My camera froze because I got a text message. So let's go ahead and fix that a moment. Let's go ahead and turn off the video capture device. And I'll be right back. What is going on with Camo Studio? Why has it decided to mess up on me? Okay. Well. Yep, nope. It completely hecked up. Okay, Camo Studio, not connected. Connect the device. Found my device. And there we go. Back up and running. Boop. At least it was an easy fix. Okay. So here we go again. Let's see, is it going to focus? There's the front. I've done the eagle heads on the back. Let's go ahead and move on. Do a little bit more. Let's see. Unfortunately, I wasn't sure where that actually hit, so I suppose probably when I got that text message, which means there wasn't much lost in the process, but I really hate the fact that that happens now for some reason, even though it didn't used to happen on my old phone. Recently, I got a new phone because my phone company was having a promotion where they were trying to, I guess, get rid of their S23 stock. So their thing was, if you trade in a Galaxy Note 20 or whatever, then you could get store credit to make your new phone be free, other than like the activation fee and the transfer fee or whatever. So I did that, and I got this new phone, and it's got a nicer camera. It's got a couple of things on it that are nicer, and it including a better processor and whatnot, but it cost me about $80, I think, which is ridiculously cheap. I've got no monthly payment on it because it's of the store credit promotion I already got, and in the meantime, it's just a phone for me to have, and I'm pretty okay with that. I think what's going to have to happen with this, even though I really don't want to do that, is I'm going to have to hit this with a wash after I finish with this yellow layer, because otherwise it's going to be too much of a contrast between the dark and the light. And also, some of it is kind of bled into the edges, into the corners, low spots, and that's not what I want. The creases, there's the words I'm looking for. Okay. Let's go ahead and do this side. Get that side a little bit. And this is kind of the thing about doing non-metallic metal, the way I'm trying to learn it, is that it's going to end up taking me through a lot of the same process, because it's a Custodes. And most Adeptus Custodes models are like 90% gold and 10% other accoutrements, which is not necessarily the funnest thing in the world. Okay. Got all those edges painted. And I think what's going to kind of end up happening here is that once I'm finished getting kind of the wash to hit those deep creases that I'm either getting too much into or not getting enough into, I can go back and really give it a good thorough lining with the yellow, which will create a nice little highlight that otherwise wouldn't exist. Okay, so now got to do these ones individually. Hit that again to give it a little bit more rich an edge. And there we go. That should be good to go. Next, I guess, is going to be, at some point I'm going to have to do the body, but right now I fears it too much. I think I'll figure out what to do with it in a minute. I think what's going to have to happen is the middle part is going to be where it's reflecting off of it. There's going to be more of a, actually no, it'd probably be yellower in the middle, browner near the edges, but like I said, that's something I'll have to hit a little later. In the meantime, I'm going to hit these little feathers. And again, you can see, kind of like with a dry brush, it's just letting me hit it with a quick highlight and then leaving deep creases alone. Now hopefully, once I hit it with the wash, it's going to do a better job of accentuating those deep creases and creating better contrast. But I suppose we will see. Same with this side. And I mean, this is kind of a thought experiment myself, because I'm doing this a very different way than I've done every other Custodies that I've worked on, which is only, I think, 3 or 4 of them, but it's mainly just an attempt to try something new, try and figure out this non-metallic metal strategy, because a lot of it does kind of rely on knowing your light sources, and I'm not particularly good at knowing my light sources. Mayhaps it just needs to be like a single bright line going down the middle, and then there's a bit of a gap of light, and then it pulls towards the edge. Maybe that will emulate the concept of light well better than what I had up there. It was just a big blob of orange paint. Because most likely the sun wouldn't be directly hitting on the concave curves. Honestly, that doesn't look half bad. And this is kind of where the beauty of having a paintbrush with a really good tip at the end does, is it creates that natural transition, that natural fade for you. So even if you're not great at it yourself, the brush will do a lot of the work. And of course that'll look better once I get it layered with some different colors on top. Okay, same thing on the back, I suppose. Let's see, there we go. Okay, now let's hope I can do the same thing on the back. Now that actually looks pretty darn good. Like I said, what's going to happen is the wash is eventually going to help this blend better and kind of give everything a unifying shade on top of it. But for right now, it's just a matter of trying to create and emulate the idea of light reflecting off of it. One moment, please. I just got pinged a lot. Let's see what's going on over here. Okay, just a friend being happy that thing happened. Go back to the painting. Yep, we got that. And so back to here. Again, just these nice little light strokes away from the shadow, so that the thinner part of the paint will remain closer to the shadow, which will create an easier to disguise transition point. I think I could do a little bit better with that, but the idea is there. There we go. That looks a little better. Already got it right there. Already got it right there. Fantastic. Hopefully that was all on camera. Okay, the next thing I think is going to have to be his tail, which is going to follow a lot of the same conventions. I think the big difference for the convention is that we have these creases where light is very clearly going to hit, so I've got to demarcate them. demarcation of that. Yep. A little bit there, a little bit there. Again, just going to kind of brush it over very lightly to kind of imply that there is light hitting the highest surfaces. There we go. Same kind of thing here. I'm going to just try and do almost a dry brushing for the implication of light hitting the highest surfaces. And once again, this will get cleaned up a little bit better via the wash, because right now I am not doing a great job. Okay, that actually turned out pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this over here. And there we go. Nice bright cross. Now moving away from the cross. Same kind of thing here is that because there's a concave crease here, light is most likely going to be sheltered from hitting that spot, so don't have to worry too much about it. There we go. So for a first pass, I think that looks pretty okay. It ain't terrible. That light is probably making things awful. Yeah, the further back I go, the better you can kind of see it. It definitely looks really rough, and that's fine, because what's eventually going to happen is that as it gets more layers, as it gets more shadows and shades, it's going to look better. But for right now, we just want it to look passably roughed in. And that's kind of the thing I always forget about doing non-metallic metal, is that non-metallic metal, especially the way I do it, which is not too well, has a really long ugly phase. And you'll get that if you're a painter or an artist at all. You probably know about it far more than I. You definitely know about it far more than I do. But most art has that ugly phase. And that's usually the phase that discourages most people, because their art doesn't look as beautiful as they want it to. And so they get really upset, and then they throw it away, and then we never get to see the beautiful piece of work that they end up creating, or they would have ended up creating, because they're so upset by the ugly phase. So, I think I've mentioned this before on stream, but I do want to mention it again. Please trust your ugly phase, because, unless you're a lot more experienced or you have the formal training, most projects like that are going to have a phase where nothing looks quite right, and you're not sure why, and it's because you're only seeing part of the puzzle, right? There's a lot of beautiful work out there that when you first look at it, you're like, that's hideous. Why would anyone want this? And then you realize that the pieces just haven't fallen in place yet. So, trust the ugly phase, guys. Trust the ugly phase with your art, with your development as a person. Just kind of trust your ugly phase, and know that if you keep working at it, everything's going to be alright. But the big thing is that you gotta keep working at it. The minute you stop working on your ugly phase is when it stays ugly. Okay. So yeah. I think that thing's about done. Wait, no, you know what I can do while I'm here? Actually, this is not the pen I want, or the brush I want to use for this. I can go ahead and paint in the chains with a black, so that once I go back over them with silver, they'll have a really nice contrast to the attempts at non-metallic metal gold. And again, not necessarily going to be amazing looking now, but once I start shading it in, and we get some of those nice transitions, then we're going to start getting some really good examples of like metallic silver, metallic metal versus metallic gold, I guess. And yeah, now we've got those nice deep dark chains that will eventually be made brighter later. Okay. Oh yeah, his other dinner plate. He's got one more dinner plate on his spear banner that I need to go ahead and hit. Now, honestly, that's one of the funnier things to me about this, is that they have all of this ornamentation. It's so ostentatious. It's so ridiculous and, I guess, pretty. But it's like, doesn't that ruin your battle efficacy a little bit? But then I guess you could go the same route as that arms and armor expert that they brought on, that IGN or whoever brought on to talk about Warhammer. And the one thing he mentioned is that, or the one major thing he mentioned is that, you know, the knights in shining armor were more about physical appearance and wowing the populace and being presented as mythical heroes than they were about being 100% tactical combat practical, you know? Okay. That might have been overdoing it a little, but that's okay. Okay, there we go. I think the next thing I want to do... Actually, I think I'm going to be a little squirrely. I think the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and hit that with a brighter color. Oh my goodness. To see if, Actually, no, I can't. I've got to stain it first. My mistake. Let's go ahead and grab some Seraphim Sepia. Mix that up nice and good. And then we will put this in all over this paint job. And what that'll do is it'll blend together the red or the yellow and the shadows a little bit better. And again, all it's doing is kind of warming everything up the same way that orangey yellow paint scheme I had on there was trying to do. But it's got a lot more to work with because of the slightly more skilled distribution of color compared to how I was doing it. So let's hit all the spots. And hopefully I did this well enough that we're going to get to see that wonderful illusion, right? Because we're not doing anything to make the crevices any deeper on the Mini. We are simply increasing the contrast so the shallower spots will look even deeper than they are. And it will give an illusion of actual increased depth. I think it was Travarian Miniatures, Mr. Travarian Miniatures, who said that you are trying to emulate life, right? We are trying to emulate to scale life. And it's really hard to emulate shadows on things with no depth because the light is going to hit it the same way the light hits everything else in the room. And so it's going to flood out the shadows, the narrower shadows and creases on a miniature. And so the best thing we can do for that is to emulate that light with shades, with panel lining, with something that will increase the depth on these minis and the contrasting color between their brights and their dark colors, I think is a way to put it. Good evening, Red. How's it going? I've got a slightly new setup with a portable mic stand, and so my voice may sound a little different, a little clearer, a little louder, but it's also blocking 2/3 of my computer. So, what is that on the screen? That's my little PNG tuber for now. Eventually, I want to have a full system where I can mess around with him and, like, have him run around and interact, but I don't understand how to do that yet, and the tutorials for it haven't been produced. So, until then, I just took a couple pictures of him, and now he's acting as my little avatar for myself. So I finished a couple projects, and I've kind of gone back in time, and I am working on non-metallic metal on these golden boys. Because I have this combat patrol from, at this point, months ago that I bought that I never finished painting, because I didn't want to do it using just metallics. I wanted to go ahead and try and do a full non-metallic metal Adeptus Custodes combat patrol, with honestly no real intention of playing it. I just wanted to practice my non-metallic metals by painting the armor. And it's been quite a journey. I've definitely learned a lot about non-metallic armor by painting, or non-metallic metal by painting these guys. But, you know, as with anything, you get tired of painting the same thing over and over again. So they kind of fell by the wayside while other projects took my interest. He does look like a potato, doesn't he? He's supposed to be a frog, because when I first mentioned that I was interested in doing, I guess they're called animatas, I was asking my friends and family, like, hey, what animal should mine be? Because the original creators, they made theirs animals, and I really liked the idea, and so I wanted to make mine an animal. And one of my best friends that I also work with, he kind of grinned and felt bad, and I asked him why. He said, because you know which one you should use, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm not trying to offend you, yours should be a frog. And of course, he's a friend, so I know he's not trying to take the piss out on me. He's actively trying to help me. And so I asked him why a frog. He said, well, you know, you're really relaxed. You're pretty friendly on stream. Your voice does have a little bit of a croak to it. It has a bit of a low rumble, like a frog's ribbit. So you should make your avatar a frog. And I went, oh, okay, that all makes sense. I like that. And so I told my wife about it, and since she's an independent artist, she started sketching out the idea because she thought it was cute. And so I took the sketch that she made and I put it through Blender, and I basically made myself a little frog guy that I can now use for Twitch. Though I think eventually I'm going to have to modify him, because I did not do a very good job in making his mesh. So, like, nothing on him works. And while it is very funny to watch Frog's features really deform every time I try and move him, I would like to make him actually usable. So, at some point, I'm going to go back and fix him up and make him so that he's actually, you know, posable and has a walk animation and can run around and do things. And I think that'll be fun. But yep, I'm gonna need to change all of my, I guess, my branding on my Twitch channel, because right now it's just got kind of a badly done MS Paint version of my face. And now that I've got Little Frogman, I could start using Little Frogman for all my branding. And we're just going to go ahead and paint a lot of these guys along the edge. So that way, we can get some really nice sharp highlights. So that being said, how are you doing? It's been a while since I think I've seen you on stream, and it's been a while since I've really had time to stream. So it's good to see you again. How are things? Especially now that it's summer and apparently the Earth has decided to set most of the United States and most of Europe on fire. Hopefully things are going well for you. I remember hearing or reading recently, I think it was Italy, where they kind of just didn't have an answer to the current heat wave and are just kind of in deal with it mode. And there are other parts of Europe that have decided that now's the time to be like, hey, if you're working outside, go back inside at 11. It is too hot to be out here past 11 o'clock. And that kind of surprised the hell out of me. That it's so hot that the government is basically telling you you can't work past a certain hour in the morning. But yeah, it is incredibly warm. And today it's actually, coincidentally enough, one of the few cooler days we've had. It's only been in the low 80s all day, as opposed to being, for us, in the mid-high 90s. So hopefully in your case where you are, it's not that hot anymore. I'd really hate for you guys to have to deal with the heat wave any longer than you have to. Though I have been reading that it looks like this has no sign of abating, and we are going to continue having this heat wave for the rest of July into August, which is not fun. Okay. Go ahead and brush that up. Brush that down and attempt to get more of the yellow in there. I'll eventually turn that into an actual gem as opposed to just a spot that's going over. Fantastic, fair enough. Been busy, had to fork out for a suit for James' graduation ball, and Nathan and Jared are up to Scotland with the grandparents. Very cool. So hopefully the house is a little cooler than it has been. But yeah, definitely understand the thing about expenses. Never fun. Yeah, we had graduation as well in mid-June, and it was pretty darn nice to be done. But definitely a weird one, because this group, if I recall properly, this was the group that I was teaching as freshmen coming into high school as the pandemic hit. So I knew them for about 3/4 of the year, and then suddenly it was like, hey, y'all are gonna be learning from home. Enjoy. So that was definitely a weird experience to see that they're all graduated and about as ready as they're gonna get for moving on to the next stage of their life. We were hit with a couple of unexpected expenses too, though ours were a little more voluntary. My wife has been kind of jonesing for a cat for many years now. She wanted to adopt her own cat, right? Like when she moved into the house with me, I already had 2 pets. I had a cat and a dog, and they were kind of my pets because I raised them. But in her case, she had never really gotten to have her own pet, and the idea of things being hers is kind of a big deal for various reasons, and I'm all for it and I'm fine with it. And so every now and then there'd be interest in acquiring a cat, whether it's adopting, whether it's finding a stray or whatever. But there were a couple times where we almost did that, and they just kind of fell through our fingers. But just recently, this Thursday, one of my neighbors mentioned to her that there was a kitten wandering around near our house, and that a couple of the other neighbors had tried to get to him, but they couldn't because he had ran off. And so they didn't know where he was, but they were looking for him. And so could she be on the lookout? And so she put out some tuna to try and catch him. And that didn't end up working. We didn't see him again. And then found out that one of our other neighbor, James, has got his head screwed on. He's got a part-time job at a restaurant, starts college in September. He's doing IT, history, and criminology. Congratulations, that's a pretty hefty workload. But given that he decided that those were all the things he was going to do, that definitely sounds like a very ambitious plan, and I wish him the best. But yeah, one of the neighbors found him inside an engine. Like, he had jumped up into the hood of the car, and was just kind of resting on top of the engine block because it was so dang hot outside. And so that was Friday, I believe. And the neighbor from across the street who first alerted her said we were going to try and see if his mother wanted the cat. And so my wife was like, I'm going to have to beat up an old woman, aren't I? Because she saw the cat and immediately fell in love with him. And so we went to a movie with some friends, and about midway through the movie, she got a text from him saying, hey, my mother doesn't want the cat. She's already raising a stray. So if you're interested in the cat, they're all yours. And so, of course, this got her really excited, and so we ended up adopting the cat. We spent a decent amount of money getting him new things like a litter box, proper food, etc. And we took him to the vet. Turns out that he's like 12 to 14 weeks old. You know, hasn't been neutered. Doesn't seem to have any diseases or anything, but we got to keep him quarantined in a bathroom for a little while. And they had a care plan for him. So that the neutering was taken care of and a bunch of other medications and vaccines and whatnot. But it was almost $1,000, which I don't have any pet insurance to cover that, and he's not covered by any health insurance, so that was just $1,000 out of pocket. We are down to 4 cats. Fantastic. Congratulations, I guess. I have another friend who's unfortunately going through the opposite problem right now. He just had to put one of his cats down. And it's got him pretty shook up because he's never been a cat person. He's always hated them, and his logic has been because they've always hated him. But his fiance adopted a rescue, an older rescue, and he didn't want her, but he was like, okay, whatever, she really wants this cat. And eventually that cat just kind of fell in love with him, and really, really softened his opinion. So he's pretty upset that that cat has gone, but has decided to look on the bright side and acknowledge that, you know, given that she was a rescue, he and his fiancée were able to give it a much nicer life than it had. And that's kind of helping him cope. Okay, go ahead and continue working on these guys. Now, I will say, I am still having a hard time with Custodes armor. It's got so many different angles, it's got so many different bitty bobs, and trying to emulate how light would hit it is very difficult. Okay. Though I would, whoops, accidentally hit his Misericordia, or whatever it's called. I guess because there are so many of these little nooks and crannies and curves and nubs and whatnot on him that if I screw it up, it's going to be a lot harder to notice unless I do an absolutely dreadful job. But that doesn't, I don't think that's going to happen. So far, he's looking pretty okay. Let's see, do I need to get inside that helmeted area? Yeah, I'll get inside that helmeted area just a little bit. Can I get inside the helmeted area there? Or is he, nah, he's way too covered. That banner and everything. We lost Leia to old age. I'm sorry to hear that. Leia to old age? I'm sorry to hear that. That's what happened with... Well, not really what happened with the buddy's cat. She apparently had a very aggressive, cancerous growth in her mouth. And was clearly not feeling well. And one day, a tooth just fell out. But it was so changed because of the cancer. They weren't sure what it was until they took her to the vet. And that's when they found out that they can either get some drugs that will make her comfortable for a few days, but then she's going to die anyway, or they could just go ahead and have her put to sleep. And, so yeah, he got himself emotionally prepared for that, and it helped her cross the Rainbow Bridge, is what I've seen some people online call it, because they want to look at it more positively. But yeah, it was pretty sad. I felt real bad for him. Losing a pet is never easy. I've told my wife jokingly that when Angus dies, I'm probably going to, like, miss a week of work. Because he is my bulldog, and I've known him since he was, like, 10 weeks old. No, not that young, I'm sorry, 10 months old. But yeah, I basically raised him on my own from then, so he really is just my dog. Okay, let's go ahead and do a little bit of, I guess, stippling. I'm not sure what to call it. I've never been very good at getting these pauldrons and making them look realistic and lifelike with the lighting. Soon, though, I think his banner will be done. And then I can go back and start painting that, or highlighting that back up. Okay, go ahead and do kind of the same thing here. That'll have to do. Hopefully it'll look okay. So have you been able to play any 10th edition Red, or is that not something that has interested you? I don't recall whether or not you continue to move forward with the editions of Warhammer, or whether you and your friends have kind of reached an understanding and you guys all play a specific edition of 40k because of lack of interest. Because I've definitely gotten to play some 10th edition games, and as someone who came into 40k during 9th, I'm pretty jazzed with how 10th edition has kind of played out. I'm enjoying the game a whole lot more than I have in a long time. I can't really say in a long time, I haven't been in the hobby that long. But like, we moved over to one-page rules because 9th edition was just too much, and playing 10th edition has felt like a breath of fresh air in comparison. And I know that like the loadouts have been made more simple and unit composition's been simplified, and that at the highest levels of gameplay there are problems, but none of those affect me. And so, at least in my case, I've had nothing but fun list building and playing against friends. That's been my experience with it. I'm a little sad that they turned the Death Guard into the absolute drizzling shits, and not in the fun way. They're actively a terrible army now, but definitely appreciate that I don't feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle with my Imperial Fists, which are kind of my main army. They made the generic Space Marine rules very solid. And friend who plays AdMech, which are also not a top flight army, but they're viable because unit composition and stratagems and whatnot don't feel awful to try and figure out and remember. He's become far more interested in theory crafting for his army and figuring out how to get a good build and do fun things with it. So hopefully that will lead to more fun games in the future. And hopefully that job I just did is going to turn out okay. That being said, I think his banner is finally done drying off of the wash that I put on it. So I believe I'm going to go ahead and hit that again with another highlight and then work my way up. Back in a bit, food's ready. Okie dokie, I'll see you in a minute. Been trying to keep up with the painting. Been trying to continue to get better at this and gain a little bit more finesse with some of my painting. And I think for the most part I've succeeded, but I'm definitely having a lot of fun painting character models. The high detail models are really, really cool. Though admittedly, I'm kind of working backwards because I'm not necessarily buying the brandy new models as they come out. I'm buying whatever interests me. And right now, I'm very interested in trying to get a an orc army made up of nothing but like internet and movie memes. So eventually, I'll continue buying into that. But I need to get more money first. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that already looks a whole lot better. And then let's see, can I hit this? can I hit these corners well enough to bring them back into a highlight? There we go. There we go. Nice. I think, unfortunately, the bottom part of that is still very, very, is still wet, so I'm going to leave that alone for a bit. And we're going to try and hit this other side. There we go. Same kind of deal here. Gonna make those highlights pop a little bit better now that I've got a shade underneath doing a lot of the heavier lifting for the contrast. And this is where I've got to actually be kind of careful. So that's what's gonna happen there. Clear, nice and clear. There we go. I believe most of this is going to tamp back down just because of the nature of the color, but that definitely looks a whole lot better, and it's going to look even better once I start getting some of the brighter shades on it. Hey, AK Former. That Imperial Fist on my chest makes you really sad. Well, I'm sorry, but they're my team. I'm going to continue repping my team even when they suck. Though, admittedly, the new Tor Garadon rules have made him into something a little terrifying. And, of course, that just makes me obscenely happy. Because I think Tor Garadon is a neat model. He's one of the first ones I really fell in love with. So knowing that he basically can tickle the prostate of any monster in the game is really funny to me. I saw a meme a little while ago that had him basically, or had him one-shotting Angron after Angron shred his way through all of the aggressors that were following around Tor Garadon. And I don't know, like I said, he was one of the first models I really went, I need that model when I first started playing. So the fact that I've actually sold him once and bought another one and repainted him tells you how much I love the guy. So the fact that I can now play him on the battlefield and make him an absolute unit makes me happy. Such a cool guy, and he likes the Imperial Fist. I can't help it. I gotta double down and love things that cause me pain. I mean, I also like the Death Guard, and they're not doing too hot right now. Okay. So I think more of that just has to do with me learning how to play them again, because they are nowhere near as durable as they were in 9th edition. So I've just got to relearn how to properly play those lads. Okay. And actually, hopefully tomorrow, I'll be able to play some more 40k with some friends. Though I need to get in contact with Soft Servo and tell him to give me a dang army list. Because I don't think he has a printer at home, and I need to print out his data cards for him. By the way, I'm going to bed so I can get ready to serve my country. By the way, I look super hot in uniform. Glad to hear it. Please stay safe, and you know, you look as good as you feel. So thank you for your service and making the uniform look slick. Let's continue brushing those up to get some really nice contrast there. It is one of my favorite things about good military uniform is that when they're made right, then they do a great job of accentuating certain parts on the human figure, which is their job, right? You want them to be able to make someone have like really strong traits. So a good military uniform will display those traits. You're going to lurk though? Goodbye. Thank you. Appreciate it. So yeah, that's one of my favorite things about like a nice suit or good military uniform is that what the heck is going on? Oh, it's me. Is that they are always going to if they're fitted right, they are always going to improve just in general how you look. I joke a lot with my friends and my family that I clean up real nice, and I love wearing suits with jackets because of it. And it really is the case. It organizes your silhouette a whole lot and makes you look so much more professional. In fact, when I first started teaching, that's what I was trying to do. I wanted to be the suit guy with the waistcoat under the sports jacket. And then I realized that it friggin' sucked putting that on every day, and it sucked even more trying to teach in it. So I almost immediately stopped. Definitely not a smart move. Okay. Okay. Let's see. It's 3:27, so yeah, I've got about 20-30 more minutes before I need to get going as well. I'm gonna feed the animals. And then I am going to go outside and exercise because I need to move more. So far this summer, I feel like I've gotten into pretty decent habits of movement, and I want to keep it going. I want to continue to get into better physical shape. Let's see. And I mentioned it before in my last stream, or my last couple streams, but I'm going to get together with a mutual friend and his friends, where they do things like play tabletop games and drink and play Warhammer and whatnot. But one of them is a fairly passionate practitioner of the martial arts, and he knows I am too, and he wants to spar me. And it's just a friendly spar. He's well versed enough that he's not trying to hurt me, and this isn't a dick measuring contest. But at the same time, I don't want to make a fool of myself, and I also don't want to have an asthma attack in the middle of a spar. And since I've been, up until more recently, I've been fairly stationary, I've decided I needed to take charge of that situation. So exercise is going to be happening in about an hour, hopefully. There we go. Okay. Not the most beautiful job done on that, but that's fine. It'll all look better once I start putting on more contrast. We're gonna hit some of this again, brighten that back up, brighten the cross back up. Do a little bit of blending to get colors there back up. And again, all I'm doing is bringing back the highlights to the gold brown that I was using beforehand that got kind of diluted by the wash. All this is going to be hit with further highlighting, which will further accentuate the spots that the light is really reflecting off of on the banner that he's carrying. Okay, give me a second. Something I always forget to do because I get too into it is I need to stretch. Let's get ourselves some pale sand so we can mix that together with the gold yellow that I'm using. Gold brown, gold yellow, gold whatever. Take a little bit of that. Take a little bit of the pale sand, mix it together. And let's go ahead. Bessica, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. just trying to paint myself some Custodes and get better at this whole non-metallic metal thing, which has been a big challenge. Get some more yellow in there. That got way too diluted down way too quickly. There we go. And let's see what I can do here, because I don't need this to be as invasive. That's way too thick. I don't need this to be as invasive as the original coat here, so this is just going to go on very, very gently to try and focus the eyes on the parts of the Mini that I want to look really bright. In the case here, it's going to be a lot of the edge highlighting, right? There we go. Yeah, we're just going to do a little bit of a drag here, almost like a dry brush, because this is just going to be at the very tips of the wings to try and show where the light is most reflecting of those areas. Looks like this guy is going to be badass. Thank you, I appreciate it. I bought a Combat Patrol of Custodes specifically because I wanted to train and learn non-metallic metal, which I'm not particularly good with. And so far, it has been what I will call a learning experience. I found a recipe I really liked many months ago and tried that for a couple of them, but I felt like I wasn't getting better at it. So I kind of gave up and stopped for a little while because, you know, painting the same Mini over and over again can be very, very mind-numbing. So did some other projects, had some fun with those, got the Leviathan box, did what I could with that, and now I'm back to painting these guys because I still want to get better at painting non-metallic metal gold. And I saw, I think it was Maverick Paints, do his version of non-metallic metal gold, and his recipe was a lot simpler, a lot more streamlined than the one I had been using. So I figured that I'd go ahead and give that a try and see if I like that one any better than the previous recipe I had been using, which I think was a Juan Hidalgo Miniatures one. And while that gentleman is an incredibly, incredibly good painter, he is way above me in terms of skill level. Like, his non-metallic metal gold was beautiful. And so I think, using some of the shortcuts that Maverick Paints uses, I'll be able to get what for me will be acceptable gold analog with nowhere near the skill level. So how are you doing? How's your day going? What brings you here? Let's see. And already, I'll be honest, I kind of like this new non-metallic metal a whole lot better than the old, because after that first sloppy layer of like orangey yellow that I had, the gold yellow, I can already see how this paler yellow combo is creating a much nicer looking highlight for it. Okay, same kind of action right here on the edges. Ooh, there we go. That brightened everything up. Ah, screwed it up a little bit. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. There we go. That's better. Okay, just looking for a stream to keep me company while I do some work. Well, hopefully this one is going to be enough for you. Yeah, I just kind of ramble. I'm a school teacher, and so unfortunately that means I've gotten used to talking when not getting much of a response. And so I just tend to talk about whatever's on my mind. Usually it's about the philosophy and rationale behind some of my painting choices. Every now and then it slips into current events, usually about stuff that I'm doing. I just recently adopted a kitten, stray kitten that I found, that my wife found, not me. I didn't find this thing. And he unfortunately has to be quarantined for a couple of weeks because we want to make sure he doesn't have cat HIV, which I did not know was a thing. And we've already got another rescue in the house that I adopted many years ago, and the last thing we really want to do is get her sick off of this new kitten. So, we got the guy in the bathroom. We've got a bathroom on the first floor, and it's got a shower stalls that we kind of can't use right now because we stripped away the wallpaper and haven't really placed anything in its place, so it's just an empty stall. So we kind of set up a bed, a litter box, all that kind of stuff in there. And he has his own food tray and everything. And he's a remarkably agreeable cat. Given that we found him, or given that he was found in an engine block, in a truck, in a neighbor's house, I was really stunned at how just not skittish this kitten is. And since my wife tried to lure him out with a can of tuna when she heard that he was around the house, we've named him Tuna. And he's just the sweetest little thing. But it's going to be funny because, you know, he's going to have a whole nother quarter of his life added to him when he's finally allowed out of there. And our current cat is already kind of concerned about whatever is in the guest bathroom. And she's seen him before. Like, she saw him when we first brought him in, and she was not pleased. She's not had much interaction with other cats, so, or whenever she sees a new animal in the house, she kind of gets defensive and hissy about it. But she's seen this little kitten, she's seen how small he is, and it's going to be funny because probably in another month when he's allowed out, after he's recovered from his neutering and from his other disease tests, he's going to be much bigger. So I can just imagine the look on her face when she expects a puny little 2.5-pound kitten to come out, and he ends up being twice her size because she's already the runt of whatever litter she was from. She's only like 7 pounds big. And, you know, she's one of the smallest cats I've ever seen. And that was definitely given some perspective when we saw this kitten who's even smaller. But it's definitely gotten us used to handling and managing smaller cats. Let's see, let's clean that up because I just screwed that up. There we go. It looks really, really not bad. I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. Okay, time to do the actual eagle itself. Gonna get some of the plumage up here, which I neglected to get already, and then I'll go ahead and go for the body. And all I'm doing is getting a little bit of this whitish yellow into the high spots of the bird head to again try and convey that there is some brightness happening there. And so now I'm going to go ahead and do the body. And I mentioned this already, but I feel like where the crease is where the light would not be. So closer to the edge is where I'm going to start putting some of the brighter highlights, which would imply that, you know, the outside of the bird body is where most of the light would catch as it reflects off of the bird body. Hopefully this will read okay. I suppose we'll see once the product becomes a little more finished. Okay, let's go ahead and draw a streak down the center. Now see, if I had any brains, what I would have done is went ahead and hit the rest of this guy that I had already started working on with a wash. And that way, more of him would be done and dried off and ready to hit the next layer with. You know what? When I'm thinking about it, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Where is the Seraphim Sepia? So one of the things I keep seeing for painting gold, especially if you're just trying to get a general non-metallic metal gold or even a metallic metal gold, is you want a warm undertone. And the best way to get that warm undertone is with a sepia color, which is kind of an orangish red. For some reason, because I am not an artist, I have no experience, it does a really good job of replicating the warm glow that gold can get under most light. So that's what this guy is getting. A base coat, or not a base coat, a wash over the base yellow coat of this Seraphim Sepia. And hopefully that what that will do is it will unify the gold to the brown layering, which right now is very disparate looking, and it will dull down the yellow a little bit so that when I do another layer of highlights, it will read more appropriately as a highlight. You can't go wrong with having extra layers of a highlight. Okay. That's technically not true. You can really screw up a job by having too many highlights because it pushes everything too close together. Right now, I think that looks pretty okay for what I'm doing. Seraphim Sepia can go away. Now, originally, I had these guys as I think it was the Aquilon Shield. And the Aquilon Shield is known lore-wise as going out and protecting people of interest to the Imperium, whose fates are very important to the Imperium's survival. And that can be anyone from certain soldiers to commissars to specific Ministorum characters, all the way down to like a lonely guardsman. So generally, they and their shield host will just go down there and begin protecting this person because of their importance to the Imperium. And I think Bricky and Adeptus Ridiculous covered it best. Could you imagine being just a rando guardsman and all of a sudden you're surrounded by 9-foot tall super soldiers who all tell you that they've got to follow you around because they're really important, or because you're really important? I don't know if I've ever seen them do this in the lore, or if there are any examples of them doing this in the lore, but I think it's really dang funny. And also kind of cool. So, it's not the stereotypical red Custodes, which doesn't look bad or anything, it looks fine, but everyone kind of paints their Custodes red, with the red sashes and whatnot, and I didn't want to do that. So, they tend to have purple trim. They have like purple plumage, and they've got purple sashes if there are any. So, my plan with this guy, with these guys, is to continue with that tradition. Continue with the purple. And hopefully the shield host will look really good, because purple and gold go well together. Any JMU alumni will agree with me. And the fact that the other school that I now work at also does purple and gold is a pretty darn good example. But yeah, just going to do some very quick dry brushing here, essentially, and try and imply that there's a brighter light coming off of these parts of the mini. And again, not super clean, not super refined, not super blendy, but definitely serviceable for what I'm going for. Let's go ahead and get the top of these heads too, because that's something that I didn't really hit. Bring that back up to a yellow. And again, doesn't have to be a super strong yellow. Just something to tell the viewer that there is more gold, more brightness involved up here. And I've mentioned it before, but I will mention it again. Having a really good brush for this really helps. If you don't have a good brush, it's really hard to get the brush strokes that are thin enough that they read as transitionary versus just big chunky borders. Now, I guess fortunately, unfortunately for me, is I'm going to need a lot of yellow and a lot of pale sand to do this. because there is a lot to this model. Okay, we're gonna hit this like so. Out of the way, light, and then we're gonna hit this like so. All at kind of the highest spot. That actually looks pretty darn good. Oh, I'm way off center. There we go. Same idea here. We're gonna kind of hit that at its highest spot. Actually, we're gonna flip you over. And we're gonna kind of hit that at its highest spot. Hit that there, hit that there. Good enough. Yeah, this guy's already turning out real nice. My only problem is that the rest of him's not dry, so I guess I'm going to have to move elsewhere once I finish these little discs. Again, kind of the beauty here is that all I'm really doing is providing highlights. I'm not actually trying to fill stuff back in too far. And I'm just hoping that what I'm doing reads as light reflecting off of it. There we go. There we go. Gotta do the back too, I suppose. Get a little bit more of that. And like I said, not the greatest painter in the world, not the greatest non-metallic metal painter in the world. Still trying to learn a lot of this skill just so I have this skill for blending and the like, but this is actually turning out pretty acceptable. There we go. I watched a Lila Mev video not too long ago. Really great mini painter and YouTuber. And something she talked about because of trying to use new technology that put like a magnifier on her brush, and then she had to kind of correspond it with a cell phone app to match it up, is that a lot of painting is about feel. And what she meant by that was that even though you can have something like an app, since it's going to be disconnected from your actual physical motions and you kind of gotta react, is that for most part with painting, you've got to kind of just have a feel for where certain colors and highlights will go. And it's not like ultra instinct or anything. It is something that you develop. But I can definitely understand what she's talking about because of where the mini is placed on my desk and in the light and where I am, and how I've got to hold the brush. A lot of this is going off of instinct. And hopefully it's all going to look okay. Because yeah, I can't, I'm also very nearsighted, and I'm not wearing my glasses right now because up until moments ago I was holding this much closer to my face. So I'm really kind of relying on general shape, language, and colors to try and hit a lot of these highlights, and hopefully they will turn out okay. Based on this, it looks like they're turning out pretty okay. There we go. Yeah, that ain't bad. Okay, I guess next thing is I'm going to hit this other pauldron since the one side isn't dry yet. I don't really need any more of this brown and black, so this stuff can all go in the wash. Way too much brown and black. Thought I was going to need more, I was wrong. Okay. Rinse that off, rinse that off. Okay, you can go over here. Gonna pull the Winsor & Newton back out, get some yellow on the brush. Oh boy, I forgot there is an eagle on this pauldron. It's gonna be a lot of fun to be had here. Again, the first layer is gonna go on just kind of to give it some shading. Kind of block it out almost. And then once I'm done with that, it's going to get hit with a wash. Hopefully by then the other side will be done and I can get back to working on that. But until then, it's just all about getting down, some blocked in colors so I know what to highlight with my next pass. Oh my goodness, there's a lot more wings than I remember here. And then there's whatever that is. At this point, they're a little bit older, because I believe they came out in 7th or 8th edition. I honestly don't know or remember. But the Adeptus Custodes models look so darn good. They have so much detail to them. I know that with, I think, Shadow Vaults, which included some Genestealer sculpts, they added another unit with them, the Sword Champion or whatever, but the Custodes models, they have so much detail. They look so darn good. I feel like if you're mad enough, you could almost just dry brush these guys into a decent color palette or a paint scheme, and they would still look really good, just because there's so many details on here that the dry brush would alone do a really good job of catching the important details to highlight for the mini itself. Okay, man, I'm actually really happy with how that how his scepter turned out, or how his banner turned out. Okay, I go ahead and try and hit this one now. Am I on screen? I'm on screen pretty okay. That. Get some of that. And this is where my lack of vision is hurting me. I can't really see what I'm doing. I think though that's kind of a, looking at how these wings are, they're so well imprinted in here that, yeah, I really honestly think you could dry brush one of these guys. I have a 3D printed Custodes that I use to kind of round out the squad, because giving you a squad of 5 in the box when you can only field, units of 3 or 6 made it really weird when you turn one into like a shield captain and then you got 4 left. Or in the case of the new edition, you can't even do that really. So I 3D printed one just to fill out the unit, and he looks close enough that people probably aren't going to care too much, but he's most definitely a proxy. And so I think for him, I'm going to try and experiment. I think for him, I am just going to dry brush the shit out of him and see if I can dry brush him into non-metallic metal. And we'll see how good or bad that ends up looking. Okay, some of that off, some of that off. Go ahead and just kind of pull away to create the implication that there is a shine coming off of the edge of the shield, or not the shield, the pauldron. That's way too little paint. And again, hopefully what this will do is after the wash and after the highlight coat, this will end up reading as though it is light coming off of a reflection of metal, not just as awkwardly placed paint strokes. Okay, there we go. I'll give that a second to dry, and then I will hit it with some Seraphim Sepia, and we'll go back over to the other side, which still has not dried, but it's a whole lot closer. Actually, we're gonna hit it with a hair dryer. I'll be right back. There we go. That'll do. Okay, that's been hit with a hairdryer. That's been hit with a hairdryer, which got rid of most of the moisture. So now I feel confident in going back and testing to see if this has been working. first, where's the Seraphim Sepia? There's the Seraphim Sepia. We're going to add some Seraphim Sepia back to the right pauldron, which will hopefully do a decent enough job of warming up the yellow that I used. And we'll create some nice contrast in the low spots, in the creases and crevices. And then when I go back over and re-highlight it, it will pull it all together. Which already looks like is kind of what's happening. Go ahead and add some down here, just so I have an excuse for not painting the interior shield. Okay. I do gotta say, it tickles me tremendously how incredibly contrived a lot of the armor is for these guys, but that is also the fun point, I suppose. I saw a clip today from the new Flash movie that had, I guess, Michael Keaton's Batman fighting a bunch of guys, and the point it was trying to make with the clip was, A, you really probably shouldn't see the movie, but that was their opinion to have, and B, that fight scene really pushed the limits of belief that someone could fight effectively in the stiff-necked version of Batman's suit that was Michael Keaton's. And it was supposedly a reason why... Oh my goodness, it's already 3:57. I'm gonna need to get going soon. Supposedly a reason why Tim Burton included so few actual fight scenes in the original Batman movies. Because it would have felt silly watching that original costume try and move and not look like he was just being fed mooks to punch out and beat up. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go ahead and get some of that. I mean, whatever opinions you might have of the new Flash movie, I did see the fight scene that was supposedly Michael Keaton Batman beating the shit out of goons. And yeah, his movement was very clearly, I mean, it was, they're not going to make, you know, Michael Keaton do a fight scene at his age, but there were very clearly some cheating with CG and stunt doubles and whatnot. The stunt doubles is fine, but the CG looked really weird. Okay. That being said, once I finish painting this Laurel, it is going to be time for me to go. It sounds like the missus went ahead and fed the pets, but I still need to get my exercise in. So I'm gonna finish hitting this pauldron, and then I'm gonna clean up, and I'm gonna have to bid you all guys an adieu, farewell, I'll see you later, thanks for joining me, type thing. Okay, there we go. Brought the brightness back up. Let's go ahead and clean that off. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and leave him here. Gonna clean up the palette a little bit. But yeah, thanks for joining me, guys. I try and stream, especially over the summer with how everything is right now. I'm trying to stream from 2 p.m. Eastern Time to about 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're available, then I'd be happy to see you. If not, that's also okay, because this is very different from my previous time that I used to set up. But, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I definitely did. Had a lot of fun trying to work theory craft my way through this paint job. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you later. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.